We don't.
You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks, welcome to another episode of the Dangerous Liberty Podcast, where we know that safety at the expense of liberty is slavery. Yeah, man. We got Jeff and Jason talking smack over in the comments already. I like that we're setting the tone right from the beginning. But we're gonna have a great show today. I want to say hi to everybody I see over in the comments right now. We got Jeff Johnson, Jason's sponsor, Con, Gary Schaefer, John Rollins, Michael Henn, Team 55MX, Harold Shepard. I already said John Rollins, and Summer. Summer, how was your week?
Jason said, wow.
Drones under 2A.
Summer is alive.
I let her come out of the box for a little bit.
Yeah.
Figured I'd show proof of life so I can get a bigger ransom. Yeah.
I don't know who you're getting ransom from, because I don't know anybody that's rich.
I'm sure somebody would do that.
Jeff said, well, why did you sell Jason's? Jason's rifle is put away for safekeeping until everything's ready.
Which is a sweet looking rifle, by the way.
Trouble, Jeff.
That's all Jeff does. He's Jeff's a little instigator. Yep. No, but we do have a Otter 114. Good to see you. We got a good show. Since it's spring, I wanted to talk a little bit about training. We got our first defensive handgun course this weekend, kind of getting the mindset of all of those good things. And this topic in general is a video that I'm getting ready to do. And one of the things I really like doing is being able to kind of bounce some video concepts off of you guys. That's what's great about the live chats that we do. It lets me see the things that sometimes I'm taking for granted, or the things that I don't plan on covering, that you guys kind of inspire me and enlighten me on what needs to be covered in some of this stuff. So I always enjoy being able to do that. Wango Han, good to see you. Eva Millette, Drones Under 2A. I think I said a hi earlier. Steve Schaefer, and anybody else? Hank NYC, good to see you.
We got a sneak peek of his rifle today with the scope all mounted up. Sweet 8-40 on top of a custom Cerakote job.
Bilbs K, awesome. Joe, whoop whoop. Yeah, the other thing that we got was the invoice for our first KDX order. We got those coming in. I also got I'm pretty stoked, folks. One of the things we're going to be doing, that we are investing heavily right now so that we have this up and running in the next couple of months, is being able to offer you custom barreled in actions, and then your choice of different chassis. We already got some KRG chassis in. If you're interested in one of those, we got the Whiskey 3 Pros. Mm-hmm. If you're interested in one of those, I don't think they're on the website yet.
No, they're in the queue to be put on. We got Dan working overtime to get everything.
I mean,
the new stuff,
folks. We have added so much into the inventory and what we're selling, and man, they've just been all great selections. I'm really stoked about that.
Ooh,
we'll have the KDX stuff
the
up.
First shipment of KGM suppressors.
We got KGM suppressors in too. So if you guys are interested in those, and I'm telling you right now, those are a super, super solid suppressor. I think they're right there at the same level of performance that you're going to get from Thunder Beast without the long weight, and they are cheaper. I think, as with anything that you get from us, you're going to be extremely happy with those. Just a super, super solid option on those for long range, and we'll be getting in some of the hard use suppressors. I've talked to lots of people that have used those already. Again, nothing but great things to say about them. And, you know, I think KGM is just one of those companies that is under marketed. And honestly, I still say that about Thunder Beast Arms. I mean, they're hard use suppressors. The Dominus SR to me is like one of the most under marketed suppressor on the market. It's so good, does everything well from long range to, suppressing 5.56 extremely well. Full auto rated titanium suppressor, one of the only titanium suppressor that I'm aware of that has actually passed SOCOM firing schedule. So a lot of cool things that we're adding and a whole lot more. We'll be offering American Rifle Company actions. We will be getting in Defiance actions. All of these right now will be matched with Bartline barrels. and your choice of different links. I'll say your choice. A lot of this stuff, what we're going to be doing is getting it in and then putting it on the website. I think I'm going to start moving a little bit further away, or I don't want to add to custom orders where people are paying us money and then we're waiting on orders. What I want to be able to do is offer you something that's on the website. It's ready to ship right then and there. It just makes everybody's life better. And, even when we put,
especially mine,
14 to 20 weeks or whatever, the weight is on MPA rifles or whatever it happens to be, come that 14 week, I get it. And people, you're like, hey, where's my gun? And I understand. And, it's like if you say that you're going to, start offering scales and super tricklers. And then, you have that one guy that is texting you every day saying, where's my
you
scale?
Get those scales yet?
Where's my scale? You get those scales in? No. Jeff, we love you. But yeah, so that's kind of the direction that we're going, and being able to offer more and being able to get it to you quicker at the highest quality possible. And we're also looking at exploring some other different barrel options on those, looking at terminus actions as well, and maybe a couple other ones. And then we'll be able to offer some different rifle setups that is completely customizable to you. We have the parts in. It's literally throwing a barreled action into whatever chassis that you want, and then kind of going from there. So gonna be good. Gonna be good.
Juan Gohan is actually tan technically, but I agree, it's got a little bit of a gold flare there.
It looks like almost like a burnt bronze.
Yeah,
it's burnt bronze.
Yeah,
Like
the bronze gold.
Yeah. So, what I do want to talk about tonight again is different training scars. So, tonight's the title was Training Scars, Range versus Reality, Habits That Will Get You Killed, Gunfighting Tactics and Principles, Mindset and Preparedness, and then we'll have a Q&A, and I expect you guys to ask questions all throughout this. Throw your 2 cents in wherever you'd like. There is a big difference between what I see a lot of people doing on the range, and I even see a lot of training companies doing some things that I think are just they're not preparing you for reality. And one of the things we talk about, whether you're taking one of our carbine courses or handgun courses, doesn't necessarily apply necessarily to long range. You've got a little bit more time and distance between you. But I'm not interested in training people how to shoot. Right? That's not what we do. That's your standard marksmanship. It's not what I'm teaching. That's not what I'm here to teach you. From the very beginning, if you've never touched a gun, the mindset that I want you to have is combat and or defensive marksmanship. What we are there to do is to teach you how to win a gunfight, not necessarily just poke tiny little holes in a piece of paper, because there are lots of guys and gals out there that are really good if they're standing still, the target's still, and they can make tight little groups at 15, 25, whatever it is, right? But the moment that you put them under stress and you put them in a dynamic situation, they kind of fall apart because they're so used to doing things. They've trained to shoot at the range. That's what they've done. And some of these things remind me of, I was thinking about, some different analogies that I hope make sense. And one of the things I was listening to a podcast the other day with a professional chess player, and what he was talking about was, the difference between people that are professional chess is like they have their strategy all planned out from the beginning. They know what openings, they basically have this entire flow chart. If this person does this, I'm doing this. If they're doing this, I'm doing this. And it's strategized throughout that. And when it comes to self-defense, prior to, like if you're making decisions, you won't be making decisions in a gunfight. You just won't. You won't consciously be making decisions. You need to be able to react without a lot of thought, or being able to interpret what's going on around you without having to divert a lot of that brain power, that processing power, and you can make good decisions in a very, very quick. And it's not all focused on, the fundamentals of marksmanship, body position, sight alignment, sight picture, breathing, trigger squeeze, follow through. Like, all right, I got my trigger, it's just perfect. I'm focusing on the front sight. None of that stuff, all that stuff has to be second nature to begin with. And if you never train like that, or really, even if you don't train like that from the beginning, which is what we focus on, we get people moving very quickly. Yeah, we're going to give you good fundamentals. All the folks that train well on the dynamic stuff, or training to win a gunfight and how to fight with a gun. They can shoot well when they're standing still, just like the people that have done nothing but static range stuff. But once they get under stress, they're used to doing these things. And so what I want to do is kind of give you guys, number one, some basic concepts, the mindset and methodology behind what it means to actually train for self-defense with a firearm, whether it's a carbine or a pistol. And then on top of that, I want to make sure that I give you guys some things that you can start doing in the immediate that will drastically change your ability to operate under stress, and make sure you're not doing the wrong things if you are ever, number one, in a gunfight situation, in a self-defense scenario, and we'll kind of take it from there. But there's some basic things that people do a lot of things wrong. So the first thing that I want to give you guys, and Summer, make sure you're watching the comments if there's anything worth picking up on, and we'll go back through those. One of the three things I talk about, especially in our handgun level 1, 2, and 3, and carbine level 1, 2, and 3, is I talk about the tactical priorities. And the tactical priorities are this: clear shot cover, clear shot moving, and clear shot static. And the first thing that predicates all of those is clear shot. And that's one of the things that we do not do at the range. And for those of you that have been through tactical carbine level 2 and handgun level 2, especially, where we get more dynamic, and at the end, we put you in a scenario. We've been talking about all this for the last 2 days for the level 1 and level 2. And then we put you in a scenario-based training environment, and we say, hey, react to what's going on. And 90+%, I would say that if you haven't done it before, this is 90+% if you've even taken the course, but 90+% of the people in that end up shooting no-shoot targets, right? Because we're not used to actually establishing a clear shot. You need to understand that, especially in a civilian situations, if you're carrying a gun, whether it's in your home or out in public, like, you have to have a clear shot. If you are shooting, if you are target fixated, like most people are on the range, you're going to end up shooting people that you don't intend to shoot. And so clear shot has to be established. You don't always get a clear shot. Sometimes you have to fight your way or move to a clear shot. So clear shot, cover, that's the most important. If you are using cover, which is something that you have to incorporate training or you won't, if you're using cover, you have such a huge tactical advantage if you're using cover and utilizing it properly. If you're negotiating cover properly, you have a tactical advantage even when you have multiple aggressors. So if you have a 1 to 3 scenario, if you're using cover, you can use it tactically, reduce those threats down to 1 at a time. And now you're on a one-on-one fight using cover, where you have a very low profile, and it's very unlikely that you are going to end up being injured. We never know in these scenarios, right? Sometimes bad guys get lucky, but what we're always trying to do is increase our odds of success. And that's what it's all about. So you got to use cover. The other thing that I want to say with this video, and one of the things I'm going to open up when I actually make the video on these concepts, is nothing I'm telling you here or nothing you're going to watch on YouTube is going to replace competent in-person training, right? You have to have, you need to get in front of some people. You need coaching, even at the highest level. I don't care if you're Tiger Woods, you're a pro ball player, whatever it is that you do, those people have coaches that can stand outside of what's going on. They can objectively look at what's happening, and they can make those small little tweaks. And especially with more of you advanced shooters, that's really what you need, because it's the little things that are holding you back. It's the nuanced things that, again, a competent instructor can look at and say, hey, you can get more efficient this way. You're holding the gun wrong this way. You are not getting to your sights enough or fast enough this way. The little things matter a lot. So make sure you guys, if you can't come train with us, get on an airplane and come train with us. But if you can't do that, go get some competent training somewhere. You need that in-person training. YouTube doesn't replace that ever. So clear shot cover. The next thing should be clear shot moving. Folks, if you're standing still and you're not behind cover, you're going to get shot. And this is one of the worst things that I see that people create a habit of on the range. They're doing everything static all the time, and that has to change. You have to be moving. You also need to make sure you're moving in the right direction. I'll cover that in just a second. And then lastly is clear shot static. Worst case scenario, if you're standing still, just understand you should only be doing that because you don't have a clear shot There's no cover around, and you don't have a clear shot anywhere else other than where you happen to be. So you have to move to get a clear shot, and because of whatever the situation is, you are being forced to take that shot static. Just understand that that is the worst case scenario, and it's not a good place to be. We don't want to be doing things static. So, one of the worst habits that people train themselves into that will get you killed is doing things from a static position. Reloads. Once you establish the good mechanics of doing a basic reload, folks, you need to start incorporating movement immediately into that. Even when we are doing our movement drills, all right, we're teaching people to shoot on the move, which is what you should be doing. As soon as their gun goes dry, the first thing they do is stop moving. Now, they don't have a gun in their hand. They're not able to return fire, and they stop. They make themselves an easier target. And it's because that's how they've trained to do that over and over. The same thing goes with immediate action drills, clearing malfunctions, and or weapons transitions. That's another thing. Even inside rooms, when we're teaching CQB, and guys are moving to their point of domination or wherever they need to be inside the room, their gun goes dry, they stop, and now they transition, and then they start moving again. You just got yourself killed, and you put the other people at risk that are in the room with you if you're doing team CQB movements. So the first thing that you guys need to start doing is practicing your reloads on the move, moving laterally to the threat. That's first and foremost. Same thing with drawing. If you're on a range, and we say threat or we hit a timer, what are we actually trying to simulate? We're simulating that somebody in front of us is an actual threat. That means they have a gun on us. So the first thing that we do, we already have a gun on us. We're 3 to 5 yards, which is the average distance engagement in the United States for defensive engagements. If the first thing you do is stop, go to your stance, and go to grab a gun, folks, you're going to lose that fight every single time. The first thing that you should be doing is starting to move toward cover or starting to move laterally start the movement, then go for the gun and return fire if you're going to. So that's something you got to practice. Those are techniques that we cover in both handgun and carbine level 2. So you need to be working on that. So start the movement first, then draw the gun, then engage the target. Immediate action drills, the same thing. As a matter of fact, one of the things I yell at students about all the time is if we're doing a movement drill and suddenly they're stopping, I just start screaming at them.
Yes, he does.
If they're doing a reload, like, why are you, so
what are you doing?
You need to be moving quicker. If you're going to do anything during a reload or while your gun is down, if anything, you need to start running faster away from that threat, because you are at a highly compromised situation. You don't have a gun, you can't defend yourself, and now you're going to stop. You're going to call timeout and say, hey, let me get this gun back up and working. It doesn't work like that way. So you need to start actually picking up the pace the moment that you get a reload. So start working on that. Get rid of, we're at crawl, walk, run, and we're at least at walk phase for most of you, right? So at least at walk phase where, all right, we got the basic mechanics of a reload. Now we need to start incorporating movement every time and it doesn't even have to be fast, folks. If you're sitting there and you're doing a static drill and you're just doing a grouping drill, you go dry, start slowly moving left to right if your range allows or the situation allows, keeping your gun pointed in the right direction, get that gun back up and running, and then re-engage the target. But those are things that you have to practice, because in a threatening scenario, folks, that's what you're going to do. You're going to do that for real. You're going to stop movement and you're going to get yourself killed. Same thing with weapon transitions. Same thing with the immediate action drills. So that right there.
I thought the mouse was mine tonight.
It is. I was just looking to see. Besides, what's going on, Ted? Good to see you, man. What relevant comments that we had?
I've highlighted the one.
Oh, okay. Jason
I'm
Ross.
just saying, it's something to think about ahead of time, right? If you know that you can't move in certain ways, you need to make a plan, right?
Yeah, and look, guys, you don't need to move fast. You just need to be moving. I'd rather you do the right thing slow than do the wrong thing fast. And that's what people end up doing most of the time on the range. We're in such a rush to get things done that we're doing the wrong things. And, efficiency to the incorrect thing isn't efficiency at all. So try not to do that. The other thing that you guys can work on, regardless of a range or other, because this is one of the things that I hear all the time. Well, Gary, I can't do this because I don't have a range that allows me to do any sort of dynamic movement. Most of the things that require the skills that you need to build to be able to shoot on the move effectively, you can absolutely do dry. All you need to be doing is work through some movement techniques. Make sure you're moving smoothly. Make sure you're moving laterally to the threat. So one of the things we talk about is make sure that your feet are pointed in the direction of movement, but your torso is pointed toward your target, and you're tracking your target, and you're keeping either that front sight or that red dot on the target, and you're tracking. So you can start doing that really slow. Use a light switch in your house for a target. Make sure your gun's clear. That should go without saying. But, you can start learning to move left and right while maintaining a sight picture, moving smoothly. You can even start moving forward if that's how you need to practice it first, moving forward. And that's another thing that I see all the time that drives me nuts. And I was just watching a video from a fairly competent training company. And I don't know, and to be honest, I don't know the context of the video or whatever else, but I see a lot of people doing this. Folks, for civilians, there is zero practical application for moving forward and shooting. It's just dumb. It's just dumb. Now, if you are practicing movement, there's some training value, whether you're moving forward, backwards, left, right, or indifferent, where all you're doing is you're incorporating some other tasks that are diverting your attention span and all of your mental resources away from just shooting. So like I have to do multiple things. So there's some training value in that, but understand that if you're moving toward a threat, there's no tactical advantage to that whatsoever. All you're doing is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The other thing that I see is dumb, that I see a lot of people teaching, and I see a lot of people doing on the range, is they're at one spot and they run over here 15 feet to the next spot. They stop, they engage a threat, then come back to another spot and they stop and they engage a threat. For competition, if you are practicing acceleration and deceleration and getting those sights on target for a competition style shooting, that's fine. Just understand that that has no practical tactical application whatsoever. We need to be continuing to move. I'd rather you move real slowly as you continue to shoot, move as fast as you can acquire a target and shoot effectively, right? That's what we should be doing. So that may not be that fast, but if you're a moving target, you'll be surprised at how effective that actually is if you're moving laterally to the threat. I don't believe in moving backwards. Again, there's competition elements that require you to move while shooting, that require you to shoot while moving backwards.
What about diagonally backwards?
Diagonally is kind of okay. Again, what we want is we want to create the most amount of lateral movement, which will be the hardest target for the threat to track, especially if you're applying gunfire at the same time, because they're going to be shooting where you are, not where they're going to be shooting where you were, not where you are. And you're constantly moving. So they're staying static. So the increase of survivability of this cannot be overstated. It seems simple, and I know in a lot of people's minds, like, hey, you're not moving that fast laterally, but folks, the difference is huge. Like the percentage of survivability that goes up just by moving slowly laterally. And of course, if you can do it effectively faster, it increases your chance of survival. But practicing shooting on the move while moving laterally is just a huge benefit overall. And it doesn't have to be fast. Matter of fact, you should obviously start off slow to where you can, and then build up to speed. Make sure you're shooting like a small target, either paper, looking for that A zone, and or like a small 10-inch or 8-inch or 6-inch plate if you're shooting steel. But it needs to be small. You need to make sure that you are able to put effective rounds on target, and they should be very precise.
Here's a question. Any data that suggests moving left or right is more effective?
No, because
it seems like, and this is perhaps moving right because most people are right-handed, they would be more comfortable shooting going right than left.
That is correct. So moving to the right is a lot easier moving in the direction of your dominant hand is going to be a lot easier. So moving to the right, shooting to the left is a lot easier for right-handed folks substantially. Moving to your left, shooting to your right, and having to crank your torso over to be able to do that is much more difficult. But what's going to dictate that to some extent is going to be your surroundings, right? The circumstances of what's going on. So you may not be able to move to the right. You may have to move to the left, which is why you'd want to be able to do both effectively and efficiently. And really, it's the same concept that we use when we're doing CQB. Whether you realize it or not, that's one of the reasons that the survivability rate in CQB, even though if there's one person inside of a room and you have a 4-man team coming in, that one person has a tactical advantage over that entire team, because we have a fatal funnel that we have to negotiate through. But what allows them to survive that, and there's lots of videos on this, by the way, folks, there's lots of videos of, that number 1 man coming in, the bad guy in the middle of the room, tracking them, shooting. And even though that number 1 man's moving along that wall laterally to the threat, even though that person's not moving very fast, what we see is rounds hitting right behind that person. So that's one of the concepts that we use in CQB. It's almost, it's not even something that they actually point out specifically, but it is one of the advantages built into the way that we do CQB while we're doing, alternating team members as we come into that. We're going down one wall and we're going down the other, but ultimately everybody is moving laterally to that threat. That gives every person that enters that room, it takes the advantage, and it gives them a lot more. It just greatly increases the overall survivability of it. So, those are the things that you need to be incorporating if you want to train to win a gunfight. Now, if you just want to train to shoot on the range, that's fine. But when it comes to winning gunfights, that's what's going to be able to do it. You got to be able to move laterally to that threat, and you got to do everything that you're doing static. You need to start incorporating movement into it.
Here we go. Some knowledge from Jeff. Civilian scenarios tend to not have a lot of movement, 5 to 10 feet. Defensive shooting engagement distances are generally so short that seems moot.
Yeah. So again, it's the same thing when it comes to CQB. All shooting engagements, period, are 3 to 5 yards. That's really what we're looking at. So that's why it's even that much more important, because we need to initiate movement. Again, if I have a gun on a person, all right, or they have a gun on me and they're 3 to 5 yards away from me, 10, 15 feet away from me, the only thing that's going to increase my survivability is some movement. I start moving out of the way. And of course, they're under stress. As I start to move, now I'm going for my gun, and now I'm going to increase their stress levels dramatically by engaging them as I'm moving as well. So, you're basically taking the initiative. It's action versus reaction. So if I am just reacting without causing a reaction from them, they have the advantage. But the moment that I start moving, now they actually have to start tracing me and actually following me and reacquiring their sights. And folks, we know, especially with pistols, right? We've all been on the range, and we've seen, especially if you put a timer on somebody, if you put them under any sort of decision-making stress, anything like that, 3 to 5 yards, suddenly guys start missing big 6-inch circles, full-size silhouettes, and everything else at 3 to 5 yards with a pistol. So this is why, that's because of the short distance. That's why it's so important, and that's why it's so effective as well.
Gary says, I will move forward or backward as long as cover can be obtained.
Yeah.
So he's moving forward or backward to cover is.
Yeah. You always want to be able to move to cover. Right. And what I would say, one of the things that I see with these types of drills that we do and scenario-based training that we do, when there is cover available nearby, I see people start moving towards cover, and then they're slowing way down because they're going for their gun before they get to cover, right? So you've slowed down that movement to get to cover because you're going for your gun, or they immediately go for their gun and then they run to cover. And, in reality, they were already been shot if the distances were fairly close. So forget about the gun. Run as fast as you can to cover if that's what you're going to do, especially if you have to move forward or back, because we can't, and that's the problem with moving forward or back, is that we can't get small. If we're moving rearward, we can't get small enough, fast enough to make a tactical difference, right? There's absolutely no advantage to moving forward, especially if we're talking, 3 to 5 yards. All we're doing is getting bigger and bigger and bigger and easier to hit. So like everybody because it looks cool, especially it looks cool on YouTube when I can put a camera right next to a target and I'm moving forward, I'm shooting, and that looks hot, right? It looks really cool. I can run forward, and the faster I get there, the faster I can shoot, and the cooler it looks for clicks and views. But in reality, it's just dumb. There's no practical application to it.
You always look hot.
Thanks, babe. Thanks. I know Jeff was thinking the same thing.
Jeff says, remember, if you can shoot through it, it's concealment and not cover. I've heard you say that a million times.
We talk about this all the time. And when we talk about, we spend probably 30, 40 minutes just covering the concepts of cover, what to do, what not to do, what is cover, what's not cover. The other part of that is remembering to use that to your advantage. If you see that a bad guy is using something for cover that is concealment, you need to exploit that. You need to be able to shoot through that, as long as you can verify and you can be accountable for those rounds if you miss them, or even if that round goes through that piece of concealment, through that person.
You got to be confident that it's going to the bad guy.
You got to have proper target ID, and you have to know what your target is and what's beyond it, right? And sometimes that can be tough. You have to weigh the situation out. But that's the problem, is if you're making all of these decisions and thinking through all of that during those scenarios, during a real life situation, you're gonna mess up every single time. So the more that we have planned out ahead of time, and that's what training is, right? We're getting rid of the mistakes. We're minimizing the decision-making time, because we've already been through either this scenario before or something very similar to it. But the point is that we want to make sure that our training on the range just isn't always pure marksmanship. If you plan on defending yourself with a firearm, it can't just always be body position, sight alignment, sight picture, breathing, trigger squeeze, grip all the time, right? We need to make sure that we're incorporating tactics and techniques. And again, that has to be incorporated, I think, under the supervision of competent instructors and people that know what they're doing, because there's a lot of people doing a lot of things wrong that are not only unsafe to them, that are not going to be advantageous during a gunfight, and is going to make them a danger to other people around them as well.
I'm moving your assets my way.
What if you don't really care
about your neighbors?
Jason, I'll put on a pistol course just for you, buddy. Aww. If you come out, we'll make sure we got something.
Oh, yeah, we kind of did like first half calendar.
Yeah,
because we're ironing out some things for later in the year.
Yeah, we got a lot going on this year. I'm just trying to deconflict. And the fact is that our schedule is in flux. The other challenge with it is that we obviously try to maintain a high or low student to instructor ratio. And so it's not just our schedules and the training facility schedules. It's also working out our instructor schedules. I swear it seemed like every time that we came up with dates, they were in conflict, like, hey, we're going on vacation, this is happening. So it was seemed especially challenging this year, but we do have some course dates up, so those are available.
Russell says, not put yourself in this situation is the first tactic. Second
Absolutely.
is to find a way out possible to avoid legal problems. My strategy, then stand your ground if no retreat available.
100%. 100%. And, one of the things that comes up all the time are these active shooter events, right? And you have to decide if you're going to get involved, if you ever find yourself. And look, I mean, the idea that any of you will ever be in a shooting to defend yourself is very, very low, right? The percentage of that is astronomically low. But again, that's what training is all about. For most of us, it's not that high of a percentage that we're going to have, a car wreck necessarily. But, we are responsible citizens, and we believe in the ability we believe not only in the ability and the right, but we also believe in being a responsible gun owner and making sure that we are as trained as possible. So if you're going to carry that gun, seek training, right? There's no other. It's funny to me what people will spend money on. But when it comes to actually carrying a firearm, you know, when it comes to getting training, they want the lowest. They want that $100 class where it's just good enough. When you're talking about
the
like
$1,500 Gucci gun.
yeah, and that's fine. I don't really care
Right.
about that. But the
I'm just
training
saying.
part of it is, you know, and that's what I've spent the last multiple years on YouTube on here is hopefully luring people in with gear and reviews because that's what people want. That's what I found out right off the bat. And then hopefully indoctrinating people into like, hey, look, think about this logically. I want to be able to have the best chance of survival. You're buying a gun because you think you might have to use it to defend yourself. Well, you got to have the software with the hardware. That the software is just as important as the hardware. So, you know, I don't know.
As far as the active shooter situation, that's something you've mentioned before. Like you kind of got to make that decision beforehand, like whether you're going to be the good Samaritan
and take on a lot of risk.
Or if you're just going to get your family out of the way, you know. And
again, it's also highly situation dependent, right? I mean, there's 1,000 different scenarios. You know, if I constantly think about this, like I'm in a movie theater and there's been active shooters and active shootings in movie theaters, right? And I think about this all the time. I remember probably the last time we were in the movies. I think about it every time actually. But we're in the movies, the place where we go, like, you know, you're up in the seats, and the exit is down there at the right hand corner, or you know, down here in the right hand corner, you got to make a button hook to go out somewhere else. So you're kind of trapped in this area. And if there was an active threat, you know, facing you, like you're gonna have to fight your way out of that. And then on top of that, you're gonna have to fight your way to a clear shot. There's all these people gonna be up, moving, screaming, running, moving. There's gonna be total chaos. And if you are gonna get a gun out, you got to think about all those things. So again, it's all about constantly playing those what if scenarios in your mind, which is another form of situational awareness, thinking about what you're going to do ahead of time in every scenario that you're in. Hey, where's cover? What would I do if, you know, somebody came in this door? Those are things that I constantly am doing. And you know, Summer makes fun of me. She'll see me and like a lot of times, like I'll be, you know, off in my own mind, creating this scenario, miming stuff, like moving my hands, like, all right. You know, but that's the difference between being prepared and being unprepared. It really is. The other part of that is medical, right? It's the number one important thing. It's the number one most ignored element of this. If you're serious about protecting yourself, protecting your family, folks, you got to get some more high level medical training, whether it's, you know, stop the bleed's a great place to start, but something like we teach, the TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Care. We call it the Traumatic Injury Response course. I renamed that just to get away from the tactical side of it. I want people to think about what's going on, but the number one cause of death between the age of 1 to 44 is not necessarily gunshots or anything like that. It is a traumatic injury of some type, and that's car wrecks, you know, situations at the house.
We've had friends that have been out cutting a tree and gotten injured with a chainsaw.
All those things.
Yeah.
So those are the things that kill people. There is some gunshots factored into that percentage, but again, it's a fairly low percentage. You're much more likely to have to save a life in coming across a car wreck, coming across somebody injured in the woods, somebody at the range injured. You know, all of those different accidents, everyday accidents are what kill people the most between in the healthiest age group among us.
Sounds like Jeff had a confrontation.
Jeff's got out and was like, do you guys not realize I'm a former Marine?
Says it was someone in the parking lot. I honked at them and they didn't like it. Melanie was in the car and 4 dudes got out with stuff in hands. I freaked and had my pistol out from behind the door. They ran back to the car and reversed like 200 yards. I've remembered somebody honking at you a couple of times and that didn't turn out so well for them.
Yeah. Throw up that. If we're going to go off track, this is a good place to do it. Yeah. Click that one.
Off topic, but bot spreading rumor Trump assassination was fake to use razor blade to cut himself. I debunked by finding front picture of him with hole in his ear and actual bullet photo exiting.
Yeah. I haven't seen those particular photos. Look, I mean, the idea that Trump would fake this has been going around
since day one.
Yeah. And it's so funny how the left calls the right, conspiracy theorists, but yet they believe the craziest shit. And that has been rampant among the left, amongst Democrats. And I still get those comments on different videos. I'm just like, this is the dumbest thing ever. Multiple people were injured. One person lost their life. The idea that I don't care how good of a shot that you are, even from 120 yards, the idea that you're only going to nick somebody's ear is just not practical. And, a windy environment, that's one of the reasons we don't aim at heads, because heads move so much. The idea that, you're going to hire somebody and they're only going to graze your ear is just ludicrous. And I wouldn't even give those rumors any credence.
Yeah. Same
thing with the I keep hearing the Maxwell Uric
and sacrifice all those other people to accomplish that.
Like it's
crazy.
It's ludicrous, to say the least. Fake the hit, but murder others just to make it look good. Yeah, right. Yeah.
When do you have the sexy pose training? Asking for Jason.
I'm gonna do a whole.
He's gonna do a calendar that features all the sexy poses, and you guys can buy it
and probably an entire training series. That's just not something you're gonna learn in one video. I got to be honest.
I think part of it is just you either have it or you don't.
Yeah,
it's like calf muscles. You either have it or you don't. No.
It's a certain je ne sais quoi, if you will. Yeah. You go. Oh, I guess they're having a Marine Corps ball or something. Something in
they lost me on all that.
I don't know either. The other thing I would talk about.
Marine Corps dress uniform is the nicest looking one.
I know you're talking about something completely different, got offspring, but let's talk, since we're bringing up chaps.
Oh, Jesus.
Because I'm sure Jeff Johnson has a pair of assless chaps. I think those actually come with the dress blues with the Marine Corps. Those are issued. But more importantly, can chaps. So I don't know if you guys have looked. Look, our video on can chaps was widely successful.
Well received.
It was and it was too successful, in fact, to the point to where poor Nick is inundated with orders. And he basically contacted us like, look, man, I got to catch up. So we don't have those on our website right now.
They're on there. They're out of stock.
It says out of stock.
Yeah.
And so he's not taking any orders for a couple of weeks. Going to get caught up. And I know there's some people in the comments that mentioned that they were basically pissed off about it. Like, hey, I called this guy. He refused my business. They were a little dramatic about it. But the fact is, number one, we apologize. Number two, it is a small business. Nick and his wife do awesome, amazing things. They're great people. He sounds
exhausted even in email.
He does. And he's thankful for all the business, but we really appreciate all the love and support that we got from you guys. We were just been pumping out orders over to him, and he was like,
we just gotta let him catch up, guys. That's all.
We'll let him catch up. Maybe he'll figure out I've actually talked to Nick, and I've had conversations with him like, man, there's no way that you and your wife are going to be able to continue to do that. And he's like, yeah, but I'm not going to compromise quality by having a bunch of people in here, sewing things up and doing things wrong. So maybe he'll be able to find that balance. Maybe he'll be able to figure that out and be able to increase production, or maybe he'll just stay where he is and do, low, high quality production. There's nothing wrong with that. And we appreciate all the support on that. Yep. So there's that.
And in case you missed it, if you did order one from us, I sent out an update email this past weekend. Like, he's making them as fast as he can, but he's not going to compromise the product to make them faster. So it's basically a custom order item. He is sewing them to each of your orders. So they'll come in when they come in. We'll get them to you as soon as they come in. And, we've already filled and shipped some orders. He's shipping them as soon as he gets a batch done. And then we'll just continue to do that until we're caught up.
Old dirty Shinobi.
I've never heard one person that really likes SIG optics.
So yeah, I'm almost on the flip side of that.
Yeah.
Having a lot of personal experience. We actually used to do some carbine courses. The NRA contracted us to, it was our curriculum. We did it. They did all the marketing and filled them and et cetera. And SIG actually sponsored that. And they had some low power variable optics on those. and they were the worst freaking optics I've ever seen.
I meant
they
red
were
dots, but
they were that too.
yeah, I was talking to somebody about it in the shop yesterday, actually.
You know, so their guns, like I don't know why they keep trying to, over the last couple of years, you know, trying to pull the wool over everybody's eyes, and there's clearly an issue with the 320s either going off or not being drop safe. I think both of those things are very real.
But they just keep coming out with new versions of the 320.
Well, you know, and I do think there's a problem with that. I feel like I've moderated I used to hate SIG. I used to get on here and badmouth them pretty hard. I still have no affiliation with them or anything like that. I just love my P365 XL. I think that's like the perfect concealed carry pistol. It's such a good gun. It's so well designed. You know, I've shot everything out there, everything from Hellcats to the Glock 43s, whatever else. All those are decent guns too. They're good guns. At least for me, the P365 checks all the blocks that I need. It's the perfect size. It shoots like a full size gun. I can throw a 365 macro mag in it. So I'm at 17+1 if I want to. I'm usually carrying the mag that has 15+1. If I want to go down to a flush fit mag and go 12+1. So it's super comfortable all day long, especially in a Tennecore holster. Yeah, I mean, I like that gun so much. And, you know, some of their other guns are pretty cool too. Outside of the outside of the P360 line. I'm not a big fan of those, never have been. I'll say that going back to old Dirty Shinobi's comment there, I'll say this. Number one, I know where a lot of their optics are being made. First of all, the red dots, I don't know if it's still, but as of like I know a couple of years ago, Hollowstone was making all their red dots, and I still think that's the case. The rest of their optics have had extremely bad quality control. I've never done a tracking test on any of their scopes, but I almost guarantee you that it would be pretty pitiful. My point when it comes to their optics is I think they're farming those out too much. And on top of that, I think that you can get a much better optic for the same or less. What I will say that they did, I'm still really impressed with the SIG Kilo 10K Gen 2. The Gen 1 was fine. It had a green tint. I think for a lot of people, the Gen 2 is going to work well. I do think the more I think about it, the more I use them, the Vector X, I do think, especially if you're a competitor or competing is within your wheelhouse, that's what you want to do. I think the Vector X is a better optic. It's more of a long-term solution. I think the SIG 10K or 6K, they're kind of going with the iPhone business model of like, hey, this is going to be a model that's out for 2 or 3 years. They're not really going to update it, and then we're going to make another one. So it's more the SIG, the Victronics Vector X is definitely intended to be an upgradable, constantly improving. You can keep that around for 10. It's going to be relevant for the next 10, 15 years. They'll probably come out with new stuff. I know they are, but it doesn't mean that their older model, i.e. the Vector X, is going to be non-relevant. Yeah. And, you know, one of the things, Russell Neal up there, he's saying, hey, self-defense situations can happen quickly. They can. Luckily, I moved to a safer area, so it's not as much as a concern, but they're getting more bold with the Tesla stuff going on. That is the other thing, too, is again, people need to start making, you know, again, you got to make those decisions ahead of time. Like, you got to think about, hey, if somebody's coming up and it's a mob that is, let's say you own a Tesla, but this could happen to anybody in any car, and, you know, they're damaging your Tesla. You may be able to articulate a reasonable use of force, right? So, but do you really want to? So those are the things you got to figure out and be decisive. Like, hey, what is a reasonable use of force and what is not. Because what you don't want to be, and this has happened to a lot of people, is like they suddenly are in this situation, and yeah, they're kind of threatened, but it may not rise to the level of deadly force. So you see people, and cops do this all the time, by the way. Like, how many times have you guys seen where, you know, somebody decides they're going to pull off in a car, the cop is in front of the car, you know, the cop's just pissed off, maybe scared now that this car is moving. Now he pulls out a gun and starts shooting at a fleeing suspect. All right, that is not a reasonable use of force. And so situations like that, you need to be prepared for that and decide ahead of time, like, hey, just put some thought into it, right? You got to make those decisions. Like, same thing with, you know, protecting your home. You know, what, when and where, what is going to happen? When do I start using deadly force? And it can't be, hey, somebody's beating on my door at 2 a.m., which we've seen that. Like, suddenly somebody's scared, somebody's pounding on the door at 2 a.m. trying to get in the house. Now, if they're physically breaking into their house, okay, I'll just let you know that's my red line. If they're breaking into my house, they're kicking, I see them are now kicking, beating the door with enough force to break through it, they're getting shot. So again, those are all decisions you need to make ahead of time, because everything happens quickly.
Sorry.
Yeah, so Jeff Johnson says, when I lived in ATL, I carried daily. I moved out here, stopped, and out here he's in a more rural area. I moved out here, stopped, and 3 months later, a dude went crazy and started shooting at a stop sign down the road. Stuff can go down. Yeah, look, man, Summer can attest to this. How many times, like, we've gotten halfway down the road, and I'm like, hey, let's go back. I forgot my gun. I keep myself psyched up and psych myself out, gaslight myself. Hey, the moment that you leave your gun behind is going to be that one time that you're going to need it. So carry everywhere. Carry it all times. Like, the one time that you leave it behind is going to be that time that, you know, ultimately cost your life or cost your family member's life or something like that.
Even out here, I've had like people get ticked off at me for something as simple as passing them perfectly legally on a dotted line.
It's a little crazy.
It's a little crazy in West Virginia. They get all upset when you like pass them legally. But anyway, and they'll follow me for miles. So I'm always on the phone with him, letting him know what's going on, taking videos and pictures safely from my phone mount. I mean, things can happen. And this is out rural roads in West Virginia. So things can happen anywhere over stupid stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, there's castle laws and all these things. And there's a lot of protections for, depending on where you live, you know, outside of New York, California, Massachusetts, places that go blue during elections. You know what I'm talking about. Maryland. In most states, most reasonable states, there's a lot of good protections for people defending their homes, their property. The other thing that, again, you know,
but research it thoroughly.
Research that thoroughly. But the other thing you got to think about is like figuring out what you can legally do and then what is absolutely right to do. I'm telling you, if you ever have to take a life, it's going to weigh on you. It may
be legal to do so.
It may be legal to do so. There's two parts of this. Number one, it may be legal to do so, and or you may think that the law is on your side in a given situation. You may decide that that is necessary. But there's also a lot of, you know, activists, you know, attorney generals and or prosecuting attorneys, right? So, you know, again, just be smart about this stuff. This
well,
really
and even what is included in castle law, like even in West Virginia, like if you have a detached garage and someone is breaking into that, that is not included in the castle law. Like, you can't defend that with deadly force.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of great resources on YouTube. And says, lawyer Andrew Bronco, law of self-defense is great on 2A issues. He tries to educate you on self-defense. He also has a book out. He's a little salty, but knows his stuff and the Constitution.
I posted this in a comment earlier, but we've had actual lawyers come on and talk about self-defense and legality of self-defense in previous podcasts, which you can go back and watch on the channel.
Yep.
So that would be something else, because obviously
one was a former U.S. attorney under Trump.
Under Trump. Very knowledgeable, but obviously Gary and I are not attorneys or legal experts.
But we play one on TV. Yeah, the thing is, again, when we're talking about, look, if you own a gun, the fact is that every responsible person out there should be investing in training. Like, invest at least as much in training as you did the gun. You're probably going to be okay. Like, every time you buy a gun, spend that or about the same amount in training. I think it's a really good investment in so many different ways. Yeah, I wonder if Masada Ayoub's going to join us again. That was weird.
It was weird that he created the profile that day.
So weird.
So weird.
I'm just going to start calling you Michael Ayoub.
I called that. I was like, oh, look who came back all of a sudden.
Yeah. He did play the role very well.
Oh, well, yeah.
Like I said, I told him, I texted him, I was like, there's like 98% chance that this was all a scam. I knew that from the beginning, but there was that 2%. You never know. I was like, dude, just email me and we'll talk about this. Meow.
It wasn't me.
Meow. If you know, you know, on this little meme.
Gary had to educate me after the podcast.
Yeah, you never know how a DA is going to go. You never know how the responding law enforcement is going to react, and you never know how a jury could potentially react to what's going on. So make sure you think about those things. All these things need to be thought of. Training is a major component. Gear, one of the things I can't stress enough, make sure you have a good quality holster. There's a bunch out there. We're a G-Code dealer. G-Code makes some good holsters. Both. I was getting to that.
Sorry.
Both concealed and outside the waistband. Dara makes really good duty holsters, but Tennecore by far my favorite inside the waistband holsters and concealed carry holsters, even outside the waistband concealed carry. They've put so much time and effort onto that. They continue to develop stuff. We're gonna have Jeff, one of the Jeffs. All right, there's.
They're spelled differently too, right?
They are.
Yeah.
One of them spells correctly. The other one spells with a G. The owner, Jeff Mao, was actually on one of our live streams, and then our dealer rep. I always feel terrible. I always forget Jeff's last name. Regardless, and he probably wouldn't want me to put it out anyhow.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't. I'll find it for you, babe. Just continue.
Yeah. Jeff D. Anyways, we're going to have him on, and we're going to go through their entire lineup, because I can tell you, even as a dealer, it's pretty confusing. But ultimately, the other thing that you need is you got to have lights on every single one of your guns. You need to think about your lights, holsters that are going to accommodate that light in that gun, sights. Look, if you aren't on the red dot bandwagon, you need to get there. And more importantly, if you're going to use a red dot for duty or self-defense, I highly suggest an enclosed emitter. That is the way to go. And there's lots of really good options out there for that. The Hollow Sun EPS carry is a great option if you want a cheaper option. Excuse me. We got the Aimpoint Acro. We sell those. Trigicon. Was it the R? There's one in that bag.
RCR.
Right, the RCR
with the closed emitter.
But you need a closed emitter. It just gives you another layer of making sure that you're not going to get that emitter blocked in any way, and it's just makes a lot more sense. If it's in your holster and it's raining out, you're not getting a bunch of water in there. Have an enclosed emitter. That's the way to go.
Team 55 MX says, Gary, what are your thoughts on chest holsters?
Always wore a chest holster in combat. I don't know. I think they're great in the woods. I think if and when it makes sense for tactical gear, it's probably a pretty good idea. For weapons transitions, I always ran a chest holster, again, for a couple different reasons. Number one, if I'm in a vehicle, I can still get to it. If I'm doing a weapons transition, it's right here. It's very easy to get to. I don't have anything getting bound up on my left or right. It's also, if I'm already going to weapons transition, I'm already at position 3, so I can punch out from here to here. So when it comes to economy of motion, it makes sense. So in a lot of situations, I think it makes really good sense for a chest holster. You know, I wouldn't, me personally, I probably would if I was hunting in Alaska, something like that. But outside of that, if I'm not wearing body armor, if I'm not in a situation where if I'm not wearing body armor, I'm probably not going to wear a chest holster.
Jason says, I had to get a chest holster for my Desert Eagle. Bought it for a bear gun with a thigh holster. My leg was worn out after half a day. Had to switch.
Yeah, that's another great point about, even when one of the reasons I loved moving from a drop leg holster was exactly that in combat to a chest holster, especially if you're doing, when I was a sniper team, we had drop leg holsters. I later moved. And so, we were getting dropped off in the middle of the night and moving 10 clicks to a position. So, you're walking all night. And if you have a drop leg holster and you have some sort of holster that has a leg strap as well, man, that's not for doing a bunch of movement. You're going to be worn out. And it's just going to rub you raw too. Went to a good course a few months ago. They introduced different red dot failure drills, painter's tape over the front lens, spraying water from squirt bottle on the rear of the optic. Yeah, so this is one of the things that we talk about too. And this is why good fundamentals, and especially that 3 to 4 on your draw stroke, is so important. So that even if you need to essentially point shoot, you can. But that is why that 3 to 4 position is something that people need to work on all the time. And all these things are absolutely right. You can include that front sight. You can get training on that yourself, but that is correct. But I will say what we're trying to do is prevent having to resort to these things. We want to stick with a plan A. All right. We don't want to automatically divert to a plan B. We want a plan B, but enclosed emitters. And folks, I'm telling you right now, I just been on the range too many times. When it's raining, had an open emitter, you pull the gun out, you're not seeing anything through that optic. The other thing I had multiple times, when we were doing a tactical 2-gun course, we were running pistols and rifles, and it was raining that day. And I was teaching, and we were 10 yards from the berm. And when people were shooting with their rifles, we had mud splashing back on us constantly. And I went and grabbed my pistol, pulled out with the open emitter. And sure enough, I had a glob of mud right on that emitter. But it doesn't even matter if you have mud if that mud gets on the inside of that glass, it's almost impossible to dig it out quickly or anything else. Whereas if you have an enclosed emitter, whether there's water on it, number one, the water will typically bead off on the outside of that. You don't have to worry about it. You can still get good target acquisition. You can still see your reticle. All of those things are good. And or if you do get some sort of mud or blood or whatever else on that outside lens, you can wipe it off much easier. Like for combat and or self-defense, period, enclosed emitters are the way to go. It mitigates so many issues that are very likely when it comes to using the problems that you're going to run into. They're very likely when it comes to using red dots. Why Daryl's best I took away was making 2 witness marks on the red dot. I strip a paint pen across the very top, one color, and another line at the 12 on the face. I see what you're saying. All right. Yeah. I've seen where guys make lines on the top of your red dots. The thing ultimately, here's the only issue that I have with that is, number one, we should have backup sights no matter what. And if people are having a hard time, the only reason that you're having a hard time acquiring dots is usually why these witness marks are on there, right? So we're either having a hard time acquiring the dot, and the only thing that's going to fix that is more reps. There's lots of techniques that you can use. We can occlude that front sight with some painter's tape or the front window. That's probably one of the best ways. Train like that for a long time. The other option you have is if you align your iron sights, which you should have backup iron sights. If you align those iron sights, your red dot's going to be within view. So, and that's the fallback anyhow, right? So that's what you should be training on, in my opinion, anyhow. If like, oh, I don't have my red dot, all right, I'm going directly to my iron sights, because that should be the fallback. That should be the plan B. There's other issues that if you get a cracked front window, or if you had an enclosed emitter, you had a cracked back window. Again, now we're resorting to kind of point shooting if possible. But the fallback, instead of lines and things, if we're just trying to find the dot, should be resorting to our iron sights, because that's what we should be falling back on. If you're dot ran out of batteries, if it just quit working, whatever the issue is, that's why we have backup iron sights. And if your dot is on, you can't see the dot. If you acquire your iron sights, you're going to see the dot in the window.
Scroll down.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. We definitely need to be much better at situational awareness, is what, who was that? Raphael.
Yeah.
Courtright.
Jason, depends on if you want the gold Glock with the threaded barrel, first factory ever Glock threaded barrel, or non-threaded barrel. And the special edition hollow sun that matches it.
I don't know what you're referencing, Plant Seal.
I'm sure.
Oh, I did see that video. Yep. I know what you're talking about now.
Jeff carries a Glock.
You can paint a Glock 19, whatever color you want, is still a Glock 19.
It's a 19X.
I know.
I know.
Still a 19.
I'm just joking.
19X, now you got a lanyard on it. Lanyard loop on it.
Non-threaded. Well, what if you want a suppressor in the future, Jason? You got to future-proof that thing. Whatever you like.
Let's see. Just looking through you guys' comments. I'll tell you guys, I have G-code holsters for almost all of my guns.
No, he's making a funny at me about something else.
Oh, gotcha.
Inside joke.
Gotcha. Inside ball.
But what were you going to say? I'm sure it was relevant to like the whole holster.
Oh, forget discussion.
It now. Holster discussion.
No, it was an inside thing. Don't worry about it.
He's mad at me about an order.
Oh. Yeah, anyways.
Jason's always mad at me about something.
Look, G-Code makes some really good duty holsters, and I'll just leave it at that. There's not even an and or, but I end up having to get a Dara holster for my Walther PDP, and man, I am really impressed with the Dara holsters. They're equal quality. What I will say is that the Dara holsters have a lot of options that no other holster company has.
Dara has that bridge that you can use to put on the G-code.
You can
RTI,
put on, yep.
Right?
You can put the RTI on there, which I have. I use the RTI on everything.
Yep.
But again, like I don't know, they have holsters like any configuration you want of a holster for just about every gun that you can imagine. So if you guys have a gun that you can't find a holster for, I would definitely check out Dara holsters. And we're in the process of becoming a dealer for them.
Yeah.
Holsters are such a freaking pain, folks, to stock, to carry.
I can have 100 holsters, and 90% of the people that walk in the door, I won't have the right color firearm light combination. One of
the things that we do have that G-Code makes it really nice. Number one, we got their entire belt setups, but I ordered the kits where they're already put together, so you can literally, if it's your size, the kit is put together, and they're put together well.
Get your holster shell, put it on the RTI, you're good to go.
So it's just a matter of putting the right. So those are available. I don't think we have those on the website.
We don't, because they're so free. Again, like selecting the attachments,
the colors,
buckles, the color, the size. It's
literally different color belts versus the pouches, sizes, options, drop leg, mid leg. Like
Jason, I emailed you back twice on that holster that they didn't make the Tenacore you were requesting for the 43X. So I don't know if you're not getting my emails or what, but
he's ignoring them.
Yeah, he's ignoring me. I'm used to it. Everybody ignores me.
Jared, purchased my MPA 300 PRC from you, ordered without a muzzle brake. Recommendations? Yeah, the MPA DN5.
Not for 300 PRC.
Oh, that's correct.
It's not rated.
DN3.
The DN3.
You'll need to get the DN3. DN3. It's one of the best muzzle brakes. The DN5 is a little bit better, but
it's not rated for.
It's not rated for 300 PRC.
You have to suffer with that DN3. I'm just kidding. That's the fake Jason for you. Just ignoring Summer. Jason, we must be missing replies or something. We'll figure it out. I'll put it on my notes to search through all emails and get you straightened out for sure.
Jason Ross, I replied to the last one I got.
I just read that.
Oh. Good to go. One thing I did want to not show you. I can't. We just got in a mystery package. Well, it's not a mystery to me. It's a mystery to you. Mystery package from Area 419. We got some Skunks Works things going on here that I will be doing a review on once they lift the embargo. And but it's some pretty tricked out, cool stuff going on there. So be looking for that. Some new stuff from Area 419.
I'm making notes. Jason Ross, we're going to get you squared away.
Jeff, I remember providing cover fire with Ma Deuce and other Marines pushing, stopping at the ground. I could see all their small faces looking back at me. Yes. Yeah. So again, just if you guys have any questions about training, if you guys have any questions about self-defense, let me know. But again, the big thing here is, folks, start incorporating moving the right way. All the stuff that you guys have practiced doing, reloads, malfunctions, all those things, start incorporating movement. Because I'm telling you, if you haven't been, even when you're trying to move, you're going to end up stopping subconsciously, because now this is what I've done every single time. All these training scars start to build up, and you're going to fight like you train, right? That's what it comes down to. So make sure you guys are adding these movements. You need to start practicing from shooting behind cover, making sure that you are, and we spend a lot of time on that in our courses, making sure that you are minimizing your exposure to the least amount. And what's funny is, as we're training and we get lots and lots of reps of that, as soon as we put you guys in a scenario and there's a timer, as soon as that beep comes out, instead of negotiating cover properly, people get excited, they jump way out. And again, those are things that we've seen. There's lots of videos out there, military and law enforcement, getting shot like literally less than a foot from cover. So if you're not training to use cover properly and you're not fully aware of what overexposure looks like, something you need to start training on. If you can't shoot on the move, that's something you need to train on. And really, it's something that you need to seek training to be able to do correctly. You really should. So that's the main things that I wanted to cover tonight. If you guys have any questions, comments, gripes, complaints about anything else, we can cover those. But yeah. Raphael, I'm sorry you chopped your finger off, Raphael.
Stuck at the one. Cool.
Yep.
I know. I took your mouse and I
Give
don't
me
know
this.
what to do with your hand.
Give me this. I was trying to look at this. Any update on my MPA, Summer?
Is that JJ?
Yeah.
I just answered.
Oh.
See, you read everybody else's comments. You don't read my comments. I'm pretty sure it's the same JJ, but based on the email the other night.
Yeah. So this is the other thing that you see getting people killed all the time is, instead of moving and seeking cover, the only response that they know is go for the weapon. So they stand there, they create this huge target, and all they're doing is struggling to get to their weapon, when that's not what they should be doing. They should be struggling to get the hell out of there, get away from the threat, get to cover, and then get their weapon out. Now, if you have enough training, you could be doing both. We could be running balls to the wall away from that threat, get out of that compromised situation, and be getting your gun up at the same time. But again, just like you're pointing out, most law enforcement don't have enough training. And then the training they do have, it's really bad training, right? They're training to get themselves killed, because what they've done is they've been training how to shoot guns on a range. And the habits that you build learning to safely shoot guns in the range are antithetical to surviving a gunfight. So they don't get enough training. The training they do get is geared toward getting them killed. I mean, that's just a fact. Thanks, Otter.
Jason, we can get you squared away with
Yeah.
a 300 PRC. Rarely do they drop the item. So they're just one-handed shooting with their strong hand?
Oh, there's all kinds of weird things that people do under stress.
Oh, I know.
For those of you that haven't heard, and I don't want to turn this into a thing, but we did lose Aries the other night. He was having serious series of seizures, and
Well,
unfortunately,
not just one day.
No, it wasn't just one day, but
Devastating.
yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, there's almost no scenario-based training in law enforcement. In the military as well. Like, unless you're in special operations, you're getting baseline training. You're almost never getting outside training. That's one of the greatest things that we started doing in special operations, is we started seeking outside training. So we started incorporating, guys that had, there's something to say about getting out or having the time to sit down and really think through training concepts. I know more about self-defense, and to some extent, I can see clearly or think clearly about training concepts more than even when I was in, because that's what I've done for the last 10 years, right? And then you also look back at the training methodology that we had in the military, which is really poor. I remember a couple years ago, I was overseas doing some work for the Department of State, and there was an ODA there in the hotel that I was at, and I was talking to their team leader, who's a captain. Team leader on a ODA is a captain, and they were talking about training, and we were talking about he was talking about a couple guys that they were having trouble with as far as marksmanship with pistols and things like that. And basically his attitude was the attitude that most people in law enforcement to some extent, and definitely in the military, especially in special operations, take, is like, look, man, we've done everything we know to do with this kid, and he just doesn't want to learn. That's the attitude. And so you're telling me a guy that put himself through everything it takes to get into special operations, and now he just doesn't want to learn how to shoot a pistol. Fact is, he's probably trying to do everything he can to shoot a pistol well, but you're just a piss poor instructor. And the baseline training that you give to everybody, the bullshit training that you give to everybody, isn't working for him. It works for a broad spectrum of people, but they're going to be outliers. And it's going to be one of those things where they're trying as hard as they can. They keep doing the same things you're telling them to over and over, but it isn't working for them. Chances are it's just poor training, and you don't have incompetent instructors that can approach things a little bit differently. And that's been one of the greatest experiences working with civilians. Is number one, when people are paying for training, and I've had this discussion with a lot of our instructors. It's one of those, I see where instructors would get frustrated with students when we were teaching law enforcement and military, and the fallback, the default was, oh, they just don't give a shit. Well, somebody that's a civilian there and they're paying for training, that can't be your default attitude, right? They just paid to be here. Like, they came here on their own dime. It's not that they just don't care. No, you just you used all the 4 tools in your instructor toolkit, and you weren't successful. So now you're going to default to, oh, they just don't care, or they don't want to listen, or whatever it is, right? No, it's, you suck. All right. And you need to freaking figure out how to reach this person and say things in a different way, work with a different instructor, switch things up a little bit, try something different, have them focus on something different. So that's been one of the greatest gifts to me working with civilians is as I've definitely become a better instructor. I've learned how to articulate things better. I've learned to identify problems that, quite frankly, we didn't see, or wasn't that we didn't see them. We didn't want to address them or acknowledge them when we're in the military. It's like, oh, I guess you want to shoot the bare minimum, huh? Or whatever it is. You just give them shit as opposed to actually giving them tools to fix the problem.
I'm sure there are some people in like regular army.
That there's definitely people in law enforcement, 100%. But what I'm saying was
like special ops.
Yeah,
they went through a lot to get there,
and
I'm sure they don't want to be the guy on the team that sucks.
With the same, I started pressing him a little bit about the same guy, and he was like, "Yeah, like he's going to the range on his own on the weekends. He's just not getting better." And I'm like.
Do you think he wants to suck if he's going to the range on the weekends?
Like those two things can't be true. Like I said, that's what happens is if the blanket instructions that work for 98% of the people don't work for this 2%, then it's the 2% problem, as opposed to you're just not helping. And there are some guys, look, at the end of the day, there are some guys that are good at some things that just never, for whatever reason, they're just never going to be good at others. But it's typically not the case. Yeah, man. No, your dad will be fine, Jason.
Gary will just yell at him and he'll get better.
Exactly. I'll have to go shopping before I take the course.
They're talking about the assless chaps.
Oh.
It's this thing now. It's a thing now. Make sure I'm not there when you show up in that, please. Good Lord.
Yeah, 100%. All right, folks. I think that about covers it on our end. You guys let us know, again, if there's any final questions or anything else. Any other announcements, Summer, that we have?
Nothing I can think of on the spot.
We will be, one of the things that Summer and I are, again, we're focusing on expanding offerings on a lot of different areas, definitely expanding our
making me spend a lot of money.
Retail capabilities. I'm really excited about those KDX rifles getting in.
That'll be cool.
Man, those KDX rifles, the quality on those things, at or above Accuracy International. I think KDX are kind of probably not underrated, because the people that know them love them. But again, most people have never really heard of KDX, and people aren't aware of the quality on them.
I don't even know how they're legal in Canada. They're a Canadian company.
They are.
It's weird.
Well, I think most bolt actions and things
joking.
like that.
I'm joking.
No, you're being serious. You don't even know how things work in Canada.
I don't. That's true. I do know they're not allowed to have anything fun.
We are going to be reloading stuff as a big push this year. We'll be having more and more reloading stuff.
Super tricklers and scales that are programmed for such.
Yep.
Somebody said, when will Chris be coming back? We don't know. He's
Chris who?
Chris, our co-host.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, this is Dangerous Liberty podcast. He's doing the Counter Media podcast.
No. They're talking about Chris.
Chris Rouse?
Well, I don't know if we're supposed to say
we're supposed to say his name.
Okay.
Screw it. Chris Rouse.
He's taking his time as he needs for his
Gary banned Chris because Chris. No, see, they're not. They're talking about Chris Nolan. Todd Nolan.
That guy might be. He may be misunderstanding, but I know Jeff Johnson was talking about Chris Rouse. I guarantee it. Jeff, please clarify which Chris.
Whatever works.
The Beard Chris, Country West Virginia Chris, or whatever Chris on
Christopher Todd Nolan.
Yeah, Christopher Todd Nolan.
No, Chris is absolutely good to do a solo anytime that he wants. I gave him full access to everything. He can do it every once. We are going to be doing our next podcast will be Friday. is what we are planning on doing. I just talked to Chris today.
New comments. Oh, yes. Chris who? Which Chris, Jeff?
So we have two co-hosts named Chris. One that does this one with us on Wednesdays.
The original, show.
Chris Rouse, big beard.
Original Dangerous Liberty podcast, before Counter Media podcast.
Australian Chris. We will be back on Friday for sure.
Everyone but Jeff, who originally asked the question, is answering. Jeff left just to tick me off.
Yeah.
Oh, he meant Aussie Chris. You were right.
Yeah, see?
I could have sworn he meant the Chris Jew hater Chris. Jesus.
Like always, you're wrong. Jew hater Chris.
I don't
Chris. Chris.
Like always, I'm wrong. You guys heard it here. You heard it here.
Just remember, somebody say it over in the comments. Gary is always right. I'm just going to leave this podcast rolling so I can protect myself from death. Chris is definitely very sympathetic to the Palestinian cause for sure. I think overly sympathetic, but we love him. He's reasonable on everything else. So, if that's all we disagree on, it is what it is.
God's offspring. He's God's offspring. He knows what's right. Summer is always right.
For my LMT.
Gary's going to call you a man trader tonight.
He knows who he is. I don't have to say it. I've been looking at the adjustable stock chap cover.
Russell said, I'm out. He's like, I'm leaving now.
I don't. Shoot Summer an email.
I don't know which one is going to fit for that, but we could try to figure it out for you.
There may not be one.
It's hard because you almost really have to have the cheek piece in hand and be able to look at the way the tabs fit around with each model.
The other option is to get one and then just Velcro it on there. I've done that before. Honestly, it's not a bad option because I don't like the straps on, especially how some of the cheek risers are configured. The straps are just kind of a pain in the ass. So I just cut the straps off, get some Velcro, throw it on there.
Jeff's comment says, Gary, I sent you a pic of my chaps. Jesus. Remind me not to look at your email or your phone.
If I showed you some of the pictures he sent me,
your
eyes would throw up.
I don't want to see.
All right, folks. Well, we're going to call it right there. Listen, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully you guys got something out of that. So anyways, if you're not enrolled in some courses this year, whether it's with us, whether it's with another good training company, make sure you go do that. We got another podcast. We'll have Counter Media podcast with Chris, the
Australian
emu jockey. We'll have him back on here Friday. We'll be able to give him crap, and it'll be another great podcast. A lot of stuff to catch up on, a lot of things going on, current events, but we will see you guys Friday. But until next time, stay armed, stay ready. We'll talk to you soon.